like symptoms of burnout certainly can be fatigue, depression, anxiety. It very much can impact the way that we think. So it might look like being very judgmental towards oneself, being judgmental towards other people. It very much can impact our behaviors. So oftentimes a person who's experiencing burnout might have difficulty focusing and concentrating, and in turn not be as productive as maybe they once were. Um, a person experiencing burnout might isolate themselves, stay in a lot, and showcase a lot of very similar signs and symptoms to depression. And burnout often is the result of the amount of work, the amount of stress that's being placed on us. And it is tricky because people are validated for working hard and working a lot and working long hours. If we think about anybody really in the workplace, oftentimes they're evaluated based on how productive they are and how much work they're doing. And we can often be pushed to do more work than is healthy for us. And we're validated in the process of doing that. And so it's very easy to lose sight over how much stress we're actually experiencing, which then in turn can lend itself to burnout because we're being pushed and we're being maybe praised along the way for how much work that we're actually doing. When it comes to burnout, boundaries is a really important thing to talk about and a really important thing to work on because ultimately, if we end up working too much or accumulating too much stress, it very much impacts our abilities to be productive and our abilities to work. And so when we place boundaries, it actually helps us to be more effective and it also helps us to reduce stress. Because we are validated for doing so much work and for being as productive as possible, it makes sense that we assume that the more work that we do, the more hours that we do, the more effective we're being at work. That's not necessarily the case because if we spread ourselves too thin, oftentimes we're not able to do as good of a job at individual pieces of whatever it is that we do for work. And so in that circumstance, I might encourage someone to experiment with it. So maybe on a given week, maybe we want to work on reducing some of the work that we're doing, if possible. There's always realistic constraints that can get in the way, like the expectations of leadership in whatever job that we might have. Though, if possible, it is effective to experiment and to see if we end up being more productive and more efficient if we've reduced some of our workload. And if that's the case, then that's pretty good evidence to suggest that maintaining boundaries at work actually is the most effective thing to do. Yeah. Unfortunately, there are realistic constraints like budgets and the amount of staff that work in a given organization and the expectations that we have in our roles.